Hello YouTube, Sam here from youtube.com/onlivegamer and welcome to your 17th Microsoft C# tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to be talking about nested loops. Now in this particular tutorial, we're going to be nesting for loops. Now you can also nest while loops, do while loops, and you can nest a whole bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and get rid of what we had in the last tutorial, leaving us with just our main function and our console.readline, which will basically pause the program at the end of the program because it waits for you to press enter and then it exits, or it goes on to the next line, and since there's nothing after this, it'll exit. So let's go ahead and create a simple for loop. So we'll start off with the keyword for, and we'll declare a variable. So we'll call it a, and we'll set it equal to 0. And let's do this as long as a is less than, let's say, 10. And each time we go through, let's just a++ and add 1 to a each time. So now that we're inside of this for loop, we can create another for loop. So to do this, we're just going to use the same syntax as we did before. So we're going to do for int, and we need to use a different variable instead of a. Now because we declared a in the arguments of this for loop, a can be used anywhere inside this for loop, but not anywhere outside of it. And because we're creating this for loop, this inner for loop inside of it, we cannot create a new variable named a because it'll start crying about it. Let's see if I can find the error here. It says, a local variable named a cannot be declared in this scope because it would give him a different meaning to a, because a is already defined in a parent scope. Now the parent scope is basically this for loop. Because this for loop is inside of this one, it's known as the parent. So let's just call it b, and I'll set it equal to 0. And we'll do it as long as b is less than 10, just like we did with the previous loop. And we'll add 1 to b each time. So what do we want to do inside this for loop? Well, let's just type console.writeLine, and let's give our number values so you guys can actually see what's going on inside of this nested loop. So we'll just type a equals, and then we'll add a, and then we will say b equals, and we'll add b. So go ahead, try and guess what this is going to do, and if you think you figured it out, well, pause it, try to guess what it can do, and if you think you figured it out, go ahead and play the video and see if you were right. So let's go ahead and run this, and let me scroll up here. So you can see here we have a whole bunch of code, well, not code, output. So when the outer loop runs for the first time, which is this loop right here, it's going to say a is equal to 0. So the first time it's running, a is equal to 0 here, then it's going to do this operation 10 times, then it's going to come back up here, a is going to be equal to 1, it's going to do this operation 10 more times. Now you can see this in our output. So a is equal to 0, and it goes, b counts from 0 to 9, because this runs 10 times inside of this loop. So for every time this loop runs once, this one's going to run as many times as we set it to, which is in fact 10. So the first time it goes through, this runs 10 times, goes back up to the top, a is equal to 1 this time, and it starts b over at the beginning because we redeclared b each time and set it equal to 0. So when a is equal to 1, b will go all the way from 0 to 9, and then 2, b will go from 0 to 9, 3, b goes from 0 to 9, and that goes all the way up to 9 to create, to finish the loop with a equals 9 and b equals 9. Now, you've seen we got a lot of output here from just 2 nested loops. Now, one time I made I think I've already told you this, guys, but I made a program with 26 nested for loops, and they really add on each time you go through. It would have taken like 34 sextillion years just to solve an encrypted message. So I was going to think of a way to make it more efficient, but I realized that it was kind of stupid to do that because we were already moving on to the next thing in my class at school. So I'll go ahead and close out of this. And this can be kind of confusing at first. So if you guys have any questions, just leave them in the comments. I'll try and reply. And if not, go ahead and practice this a couple times. Do it with a do loops, do it with your do whiles, or same thing. Do it with your while loops, and add stuff inside. You can add an if statement in here, whatever you want. Just make sure you've got this nailed down. And once you do that, go ahead and move on to the next tutorial. And don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe.